Crick stood in front of the mirror in the Intergalactic Sports Academy locker room, admiring his four muscular arms. The blue-skinned athlete flexed each limb, watching the movement of his enhanced muscles under the bright academy lights. He was the strongest in his class back on his home planet, and he planned to keep that reputation here at the academy. "Did you see the new human in combat class?" A voice chirped behind him. It was Pip, a small bird-like creature with silver feathers. Crix laughed, his deep voice echoing off the metal walls. "You mean the pink-skinned weakling? What was his name?" "Tom." "I wouldn't underestimate him," Pip warned, hopping from one foot to another. "Yesterday, he lifted weights for 3 hours straight." 3 hours. Most species can't keep going that long. "Bah, that's nothing." Crix waved one of his hands dismissively while using another to adjust his training uniform. "On my planet, we lift rocks twice our size before breakfast. These humans are from a low-gravity world. They're basically space tourists." Just then, the subject of their conversation walked into the locker room. Tom was average-looking by human standards. Medium height, brown hair, and an unremarkable build. He quietly made his way to his locker, not paying attention to the whispers around him. Something about Tom's calmness annoyed Crix. The human never bragged, never showed off, just came to class, and performed his exercises with that irritating quiet confidence. Well, that was about to change. "Hey, human," Crix called out, all 4 arms crossed over his chest. "I've been watching you in combat class." Tom turned around slowly, raising an eyebrow. "Oh, you think you're tough because you can do a few exercises. Back home, I was champion wrestler for 3 cycles. Why don't we have a real match? Tomorrow, in the arena." Crix's voice grew louder with each word, drawing attention from other students who were now gathering around. Professor Gray, a tall insectoid who taught advanced combat techniques, clicked his mandibles in concern. "Crix, are you sure that's wise? The human species has some interesting capabilities." "What capabilities? They don't even have extra arms." Crix laughed, flexing his multiple limbs for emphasis. "Look at him. No claws, no armor, no natural weapons at all. It'll be an easy win." The growing crowd of alien students muttered among themselves. Some pulled out their data pads, already setting up betting pools. Others looked worried, especially those who had studied Earth's history. Tom closed his locker quietly. "If you want a match, that's fine by me." His voice was calm, almost friendly. "Tomorrow at noon." "Perfect. I'll try not to damage you too badly," Crix boasted. "Wouldn't want to cause an interplanetary incident by breaking Earth's finest." As Tom walked away, an older student from the gas giant Jupiter 9 floated over to Crix. "You really shouldn't have done that," the gaseous being whispered. "My research project was about Earth. Did you know their planet has gravity 1.5 times stronger than the Academy standard?" "So what?" Crix snorted. "I'm still stronger. 4 arms, remember? And did you know they evolved as persistence hunters? They can keep moving for hours, even days." "Hours? Days?" Crix laughed again. "Tomorrow's match will be over in minutes. I'm going to show everyone that humans aren't special. They're just soft, pink creatures who got lucky with their space program." As Crix strode out of the locker room, his confidence radiating from all 4 shoulders, the other students exchanged knowing looks. The betting odds were already shifting heavily in Tom's favor, but nobody bothered telling Crix. Some lessons, after all, had to be learned the hard way. In the Academy's medical bay, the staff began preparing extra beds. They had seen enough human matches to know exactly how this would end. The morning before the match, Crix woke up early to train. The Academy gym was almost empty, except for a few nocturnal species finishing their night routines. The blue-skinned athlete moved straight to the weight section, loading up plates on 4 different machines. "Computer, show me data on human physical capabilities," he commanded while starting his exercises. The gym's AI projected a holographic screen in front of him. "Warning, Data may be outdated. The computer beeped. Last update, 50 years ago, when humans first joined the Intergalactic Sports Academy. Crick smiled as he read the numbers. Maximum human lift capacity, 200 units. Ha, I can lift 300 with just 2 arms. He conveniently ignored the note about Earth's higher gravity and its effects on muscle density. As he moved through his workout, memories of his past victories flooded back. On his home planet, he had won every junior championship. His 4 arms made him unbeatable in wrestling. He could attack and defend at the same time. No opponent had lasted more than 5 minutes against him. Hey, Cricks. Pip flew in through the gym doors. The betting pool is up to 10,000 credits now. Really? Cricks grinned, doing bicep curls with all 4 arms. Everyone betting on me, I suppose. Pip shuffled his feathered feet nervously. Actually, the odds are 5-1 in Tom's favor. What? Cricks dropped his weights with a crash. Several other athletes jumped at the noise. Are they crazy? Have they seen these muscles? Well, Pip fluttered closer, lowering his voice. I saw Tom training yesterday. He was practicing something called judo. It looked scary. Bah. Earth martial arts are just fancy dancing. Crick scoffed, but a tiny seed of doubt had been planted in his mind. He grabbed his data pad and searched for videos of human wrestling matches. The first video made him pause. A smaller human was throwing a larger one over their shoulder. The second video showed something called an arm bar that looked painful. The third video. Cricks closed the pad quickly. Those are just tricks, he muttered to himself. They won't work against 4 arms. In another part of the academy, Tom was also preparing, but differently. He sat in the meditation garden, breathing slowly and steadily. A small crowd of alien students had gathered to watch him, whispering among themselves. Is he charging up some kind of energy attack? Asked a young plasma-based being. No, humans call it centering yourself, explained a senior student. They're weird like that. They get stronger when they're calm. Meanwhile, in the academy's medical bay, Dr. Blip was organizing supplies. The tiny green medical officer had treated enough post-human mash injuries to know what to expect. Double-check the bone-knitting equipment, she told her staff, and get the Pride Restoration counselor on standby. Doctor, one of the nurses asked, should we warn Cricks about what happened to the last 3 students who challenged humans? Dr. Blick shook her head, her antennae twitching. Some lessons must be learned personally. Besides, he wouldn't believe us anyway. Back in the gym, Cricks was finishing his workout with a series of practice throws. He used all 4 arms to grab a training dummy, lifting it high above his head before slamming it down. The impact left a small dent in the training mat. See that? He called out to anyone listening. That's what's going to happen to Tom. From across the gym, a mechanical cleaning bot whirred softly. Negative. Based on previous data, probability of that outcome is 0.001%. Oh, shut up, Cricks grumbled. He gathered his things and headed for the locker room, still confident but with a growing knot of worry in his stomach. The betting odds, the videos, the warnings. Maybe he should have done more research before issuing the challenge. But it was too late now. His pride wouldn't let him back down. Tomorrow at noon, he would show everyone that humans weren't so special after all. If only he knew why the medical bay staff were setting up an extra bed with his name on it. At exactly noon, the academy's arena was packed. Students from every known species filled the seats, creating a rainbow of colors and shapes. Some floated, others perched, and a few even hung upside down from the ceiling. Everyone wanted to see the match between the 4-armed champion and the human. Place your final bets, Pip called out, flying around the arena with his data pad. Last chance to win big. Current odds, 7-1 in favor of the human. Cricks paced in the preparation room, all 4 fists clenching and unclenching. He wore his traditional wrestling outfit, a blue and silver suit that showed off his muscular arms. Through the window, He could see the medical team setting up equipment at ringside. They're just being careful, he told himself. Standard procedure. The door opened, and Professor Gray walked in, his insect-like features unreadable. Are you ready, Crix? Last chance to withdraw with dignity. Withdraw? Never. Crix flexed all 4 arms. I'm going to prove that humans aren't special. Very well. Professor Gray's antennae drooped slightly. Please sign this medical waiver. In the opposite preparation room, Tom sat quietly, wearing simple black shorts and a t-shirt. He stretched slowly, his movements calm and precise. A group of first-year students had pressed their faces against his window, trying to see if humans really did glow before combat like the rumors said. The arena lights dimmed, and a spotlight hit the center of the mat. The Academy's director, a tall crystalline being, floated to the middle. Welcome, students and faculty, to this unofficial but highly anticipated match. The director's voice resonated through the arena. In one corner, we have Crix, 3-time champion of the quadruple star system. Crix marched out, head held high, all 4 arms raised in greeting. Several students cheered, though mostly out of politeness. And in the other corner, we have Tom, first-year human student from Earth. Tom walked out calmly, giving a small wave to the crowd. The cheering was much louder, especially from those who had seen humans fight before. The rules are simple, Professor Gray announced, stepping between them. No weapons, no deadly force, and the match ends with either a submission or when I determine it's unsafe to continue. Do you both understand? Yes. Tom nodded. Of course, Crix grinned, showing his pointed teeth. Though I doubt you'll need to stop it. This won't take long. In the medical bay viewing room, Dr. Blip watched the screen while preparing bandages. He really has no idea, does he? None at all, her assistant replied, checking the bone-knitting machine for the 3rd time. Back in the arena, Crix and Tom faced each other on the mat. The size difference was obvious. Crix stood a head taller, his 4 massive arms making him look twice as wide. Last chance to back out, human, Crix called out. I'd hate to ruin that soft skin of yours. Tom just smiled. Ready when you are. Professor Gray raised his limb. Fighters ready. Begin. Crix immediately rushed forward, all 4 arms spread wide to grab Tom. The crowd gasped. Surely no one could escape a 4-armed grapple. But Tom wasn't there anymore. He had shifted slightly to the left, so smoothly it almost looked like he hadn't moved at all. Stop dancing and fight. Crix spun around, throwing a punch with his upper right arm. Tom ducked under it effortlessly. This is fighting, Tom replied calmly, still moving with that strange, fluid grace. You just haven't realized it yet. In the stands, a physics student turned to their friend. Notice how the human moves. Minimum energy, maximum effect. They evolved to hunt by exhausting their prey. How long do you think this will last? The friend asked. Based on previous matches, about 3 more minutes before Crix learns why the medical bay prepared that extra ved. Down in the arena, Crix was getting frustrated. None of his 4 arms could grab the human. It was like trying to catch smoke. And why wasn't Tom attacking? Why did he keep smiling like that? He was about to find out. The hard way. Crix's frustration grew with each passing minute. His 4 arms, which had always been his greatest advantage, now felt clumsy and slow. Tom moved like water, always just out of reach, never where Crix expected him to be. Stand still and fight. Crix roared, launching another series of punches. His upper arms aimed high while his lower arms swept low, a combination that had never failed him before. Tom simply stepped through the attack, his movement so precise it looked almost casual. I am fighting, he said calmly. I'm just letting you tire yourself out first. In the stands, the alien students watched with growing excitement. A crystalline being pulled out a datapad and started explaining to nearby spectators. See how the human moves. They're using something called energy conservation. While Cricks waste power with big movements, the human barely moves at all. Sweat dripped from all four of Cricks's arms. 5 minutes had passed, and he hadn't landed a single hit. Worse, he was starting to feel tired. Tired, against a two-armed opponent. "What's wrong?" Tom asked, still moving with that infuriating smoothness. "You seem to be slowing down." Something in Tom's voice made Cricks snap. With a roar, he charged forward, all four arms spread wide for a crushing bear hug. This time, he was sure he had the human trapped. What happened next seemed to defy physics. Tom stepped forward instead of back, moving into Cricks's charge. His hands gripped one of Cricks's lower arms, and suddenly the world spun. Cricks felt his feet leave the ground, his massive body rotating through the air as if gravity had reversed. Wham! The impact knocked the breath from all four of his lungs. He lay on the mat, staring up at the arena lights, trying to understand how a being half his size had just thrown him like a practice dummy. That, Professor Gray announced to the stunned crowd, was a basic human technique called a hip throw. Notice how it used Cricks's own momentum against him. Cricks scrambled to his feet, his pride hurt more than his body. "Lucky move," he growled, but there was uncertainty in his voice now. "Not luck," Tom replied. "Just physics." He settled back into his ready stance, still looking as fresh as when they started. In the medical bay viewing room, Dr. Blip began warming up the tissue regenerator. "Here it comes," she muttered. "The moment he realizes." Back in the arena, Cricks was having a terrible realization. His arms felt heavy. His breathing came in gasps. The human hadn't even attacked yet. He'd just let Cricks wear himself out trying to catch him. "Ready to continue?" Tom asked politely. Cricks responded with another charge, but even he could feel how much slower he was moving. This time, Tom didn't throw him. Instead, the human slipped past Cricks's guard like it wasn't there, gripped one of his upper arms, and applied gentle pressure to a joint. Gentle pressure that somehow sent waves of pain shooting through Cricks's entire body. "This is called a joint lock," Tom explained to the watching crowd, as calmly as if he were teaching a class. "Human joints are very flexible, which helps us understand how to manipulate others." "I yield," Cricks gasped, tapping the mat with his free hands. The pain immediately stopped as Tom released him. The crowd erupted in cheers. Money changed hands as bets were settled. Professor Gray nodded, having seen this outcome many times before. Cricks sat on the mat, all four arms trembling from exhaustion and shock. 7 minutes. It had taken just 7 minutes for everything he believed about humans to be proven wrong. "Good match," Tom said, offering a hand to help him up. "Your four-arm combinations were really impressive, with some refinement in technique." But Cricks didn't hear the rest. The room was starting to spin in an alarming way, and the medical team was rushing toward him with a hover stretcher. The last thing he heard before passing out was Dr. Blip's voice. "And this is why we always prepare the medical bay when humans have matches." With 3 of his arms aching and his pride in pieces, Cricks struggled to stand back up. The match wasn't over. He refused to let it end like this. The crowd watched in silence as he wobbled on his feet, using his one good arm to wipe sweat from his face. "You should stay down," Tom advised kindly. "Your body is showing signs of exhaustion." "Never," Cricks wheezed, though even he could hear the desperation in his voice. "I am a champion. I won't lose to a soft-skinned human." In the stands, the physics student was now giving an impromptu lecture. "Watch carefully. This is what humans call adrenaline, when their bodies release chemicals that make them stronger. But look at Cricks. He's running purely on stubbornness now." Dr. Blip, still watching from the medical bay screen, shook her head. Typical third stage of fighting a human, desperate denial. Next comes the reckless charge, and then, as if on cue, Cricks let out a battle cry and rushed forward. He threw every technique he knew into one final attack. His upper arms swung high, his lower arms swept low, His body twisted to put maximum power into each strike. 10 minutes ago, it would have been impressive. Now, it just looked sad. Tom sidestepped the wild attack with minimal movement. "Interesting combination," he commented, as if they were having a casual conversation. "But you're telegraphing your moves. See, humans evolved as predators. We're really good at reading body language. Stop talking and fight." Crix panted between swings. "I am fighting," Tom replied patiently. "I'm using a human technique called exhaustion tactics. Our ancestors used to chase prey until it got too tired to run anymore." The explanation just made Crix angrier. He launched another series of attacks, but each one was slower than the last. His 4 arms, once his pride and joy, now felt like they were made of lead. Professor Gray's antennae twitched with concern. "Perhaps we should stop the match." Before he could finish, Crix made his final mistake. He put all his remaining strength into one massive punch, throwing his entire body forward. Time seemed to slow down. Tom moved like flowing water, his body turning slightly. One hand caught Crix's wrist, the other pressed against his elbow. There was a gentle shift of weight, a small step, and the crowd gasped. Crix found himself airborne again, but this time in a graceful arc that seemed to last forever. He had just enough time to think, "Oh, so this is what flying feels like," before gravity remembered he existed. Food. The impact knocked what little breath he had left out of his lungs. He lay spread-eagled on the mat, all 4 arms splayed out, staring up at the arena lights that seemed much brighter than before. "That," Tom announced to the silent crowd, "is called using your opponent's energy against them. It's a basic principle of human martial arts." Dr. Blip's medical team was already rushing forward with their hover stretcher. "And that," she muttered, checking her diagnostic scanner, "is why we always keep the bone-knitting machine warmed up." As the medical team carefully lifted him onto the stretcher, Crix's mind was spinning faster than his body had. How had a 2-armed human defeated him so completely? It wasn't just strength. It was technique, efficiency, and something else he couldn't quite understand. "Good match," Tom said, walking alongside the stretcher. "You've got amazing natural ability. Once you recover, I could show you some techniques that would work really well with your 4 arms." Crix tried to answer, but all that came out was a weak groan. The last thing he saw before the medical bay doors closed was Pip flying overhead, calling out, "Final odds were 10-1. Winners can collect their credits tomorrow." In the arena, Professor Gray addressed the stunned first-year students. "And that, class, is why we never underestimate humans. Now, who can explain the physics behind that last throw?" Crix woke up to the soft beeping of medical machines in the Academy's hospital wing. All 4 of his arms were wrapped in healing gel bandages, and his body felt like he'd been hit by a small spacecraft. "Ah, you're awake," Dr. Blip chirped, her green antennae wiggling as she checked his vital signs. "How many fingers am I holding up?" "Which hand?" Crix groaned, then realized she was making a joke. Medical staff had the strangest sense of humor. "Good, your sense of awareness is returning," she noted on her datapad. "You have 3 sprains, 2 bruised muscles, and 1 severely wounded pride. The first 2 will heal quickly. The third," she clicked sympathetically, "might take longer." The door slid open, and Pip fluttered in carrying a large "Get Well Soon" card. "Everyone signed it," he announced proudly. Even the plasma beings, though they had to use special heat-resistant ink. Crix took the card with his least sore arm. The messages ranged from sympathetic to amusing. "Welcome to the I Challenged a Human Club. Members currently 47. At least you lasted longer than I did. Bob from Jupiter 9. Next time, try fighting a black hole instead. It's easier. The physics department. Oh, and look who's here." Pip chirped excitedly. Tom walked in, carrying a basket of earth fruits and what looked like a textbook. "Hey there, champion. Brought you some recovery supplies. Crix tried to sit up straighter but winced as all four shoulders protested. Come to finish me off? He asked, only half joking. Actually, Tom placed the basket on the bedside table. I brought you something that might interest you. He held up the book, Understanding Human Physical Capabilities, an updated guide. Dr. Blip's antennae perked up. Ooh, the new edition. The chapter on adrenaline responses is fascinating. Did you know, Tom continued, pulling up a chair, that humans evolved on a planet with higher gravity than most inhabited worlds? It's why we seem stronger than our size suggests. Despite himself, Crix found he was interested. Really? Yes, and our endurance. It comes from being persistence hunters. Early humans would chase prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. Tom opened the book to a marked page. See these diagrams. They show how human joints evolve for efficiency of movement. For the next hour, Tom explained the basics of human biology. Crix learned about muscle density, oxygen processing, and something called runner's high. The more he learned, the more his earlier assumptions seemed ridiculous. So when you let me tire myself out, Crix began. Classic human hunting technique. Tom nodded. Why waste energy when your opponent will do the work for you? Dr. Blip joined the impromptu lesson, adding medical insights. Humans also have remarkable healing capabilities. Their bodies actually become stronger after recovering from strain or injury. Which reminds me, Tom reached into his basket. I brought you some bananas. Earth fruit, high in potassium. Good for muscle recovery. Crix looked at the yellow curved fruit suspiciously. It won't give me human powers, will it? Everyone laughed, and Crix found himself chuckling too, even though it made his ribs hurt. The real question, Pip said, perching on the bed rail, is what you're going to do once you're healed. Crix looked at his bandaged arms, then at the book Tom had brought, and finally at the Get Well Soon card with its long list of signatures, all from others who had learned this lesson the hard way. I think, he said slowly, I'd like to learn more about human fighting techniques. If, he glanced at Tom hopefully, you're still willing to teach me. Tom grinned. I thought you'd never ask. We can start with theory while you recover. Your forearms could be amazing for some advanced techniques. As Tom began explaining basic principles of human martial arts, Dr. Blip made a note in her medical log. Patient showing signs of enhanced wisdom. Prognosis. Excellent. Side effects may include improved fighting skills and a new training partner. The healing gel bandages glowed softly as they did their work, while outside the window, another alien student could be heard boasting about how humans couldn't possibly be that tough. 3 weeks after the infamous match, Crix stood in the academy's training room, watching Tom demonstrate a basic throw. His arms had fully healed, and his pride had mostly recovered. Mostly. The key, Tom explained, moving slowly through the technique, is to use your opponent's energy against them. With 4 arms, you could control their movement even better than I can. Like this. Crix attempted the throw, his 4 arms moving in perfect coordination. The training dummy flew through the air exactly as planned. Perfect. Tom clapped. You're learning faster than any student I've had. The training room had become quite crowded these days. Other aliens gathered to watch the unusual sight of a 4-armed champion learning from a human. Some even took notes. Remember when he challenged you to that match? Pip asked, perched on a nearby weight rack. Who would have thought you'd end up teaching a class together? It was true. Word had spread about the unique combination of human techniques and 4-armed power. The Academy had officially approved their joint teaching sessions, calling it multi-line combat enhancement with human efficiency principles. I still can't believe how wrong I was about humans, Crix admitted, helping another student position their arms correctly. I thought having more limbs meant I was automatically stronger. A common mistake, Professor Gray clicked, entering the training room. That's why we've updated our species capability database. The new entry for humans is quite interesting. He projected the updated database entry onto the wall. Humans, classification, deceptively dangerous. Notable features: exceptional endurance, tactical thinking, adaptability. Warning: do not challenge to physical contests without proper training. Special note: number of limbs is not indicative of combat effectiveness. Current Academy combat ranking: top tier. Medical bay visits caused 47 and counting. The students laughed at the last line, especially those who had contributed to that number. You know what's really amazing? Crick said, demonstrating another throw to a 6-armed trainee. Humans don't just fight well, they teach well. They understand how different species move, how to adapt techniques for various body types. We had to learn that to survive on Earth, Tom explained. Our planet has millions of different species. Understanding movement and adaptation is in our DNA. The Academy's director floated in, their crystalline form shimmering with approval. Your joint class has become quite popular. We're considering making it a permanent part of the curriculum, as long as we keep the medical bay well stocked. Dr. Blipp added, popping her head in to check on her former patient. Crix laughed, something he did more often now. Maybe we should add a required course. Why not to challenge humans 101? With you as the guest speaker? Pip teased. Exactly. Who better to teach it than someone who learned the hard way? Crix demonstrated what not to do, making exaggerated movements with all 4 arms while Tom easily dodged them, much to the students' amusement. As the class wrapped up, a new student, a tentacled being from the water worlds, approached Tom. Is it true what they say, that humans used to hunt by simply following their prey until it got tired? It's true, Tom nodded. We're not the strongest or fastest, but we never give up. That's our real strength. And our real weakness, Crix added with a grin, is thinking we're stronger just because we have more limbs or natural weapons. The training room slowly emptied, but Crix and Tom stayed behind to clean up. As they put away the training equipment, Crix noticed a new poster on the wall. Note I see. Before challenging a human to any physical contest, please visit the medical bay 2. 1. Pre-fill your paperwork. 2. Reserve your recovery bed. 3. Update your emergency contacts. 4. Reconsider your life choices. They put that up last week, Tom said, following his gaze. Right after someone challenged me to a running contest. Did they win? Crix asked, already knowing the answer. They're still in the medical bay, Tom smiled. But hey, maybe they'll end up teaching a class with me too. Like I did. Crix flexed all 4 arms proudly. Exactly. Sometimes the best lessons come from the biggest mistakes. And somewhere in the academy, another student was boasting about how humans couldn't possibly be that tough.